Let's watch this. 17 minutes long. Bungie has no idea what they're doing. I mean, they're kind of right. Let's see what they're talking about. So Bungie has no idea what they're doing. Is this a bad time for Bungie? Bungie is not doing so good, but let's watch it.
Let's talk about the future of live service stuff overall, because on the Friends Per Second podcast, Jason Schreier was also discussing Bungie's marathon, saying that the state of marathon, and this is kind of in the wake of everything that's happened with Bungie overall, the amount of layoffs that they've had in the last few years that they've had of development, marathon is not great from what Jason Schreier has heard.
I mean, okay, Marathon looks very the aesthetic of it looks very cool and everything. But is it a little too late? Like, cause if you don't know, Marathon's supposed to be a extraction shooter. But is there still life in the extraction shooter? Now we have like that new game Delta Force coming out. You know, a lot of content creators been playing that, been loving like the extraction shooter part of it and everything. But like the real like pop Tarkov, I mean it's doing all right, but it's not doing the best. What H1Z1, that's not doing great. The Call of Duty extraction shooter, that's pretty much dead. I mean, maybe Bungie can bring life into the extraction shooter. You know, maybe the new Delta Force game and Marathon. I mean, they may be the new top dogs in that genre. Who knows? But I don't know. They're banking on it.
There's a reason it was planned for 2024 and it's slipped a whole year. People I've talked to are a little pessimistic about it, even hitting its current deadline, but we'll see. I don't know exactly when that is, sometime in 2025, I'm not sure. Like I said, this comes after various members of Bungie left the project, and Bungie themselves have suffered hundreds of layoffs across this year as well.
I know they just mentioned him. Jason Schreier was on a podcast, and he said he basically compared it to Suicide Squad, and we all know how that went. But this look at it, it just looks so like the art direction they took with it. This looks so cool.
Marathon is kind of seen as the thing that'll resurrect Bungie in the eyes of the wider populace. The idea that an extraction shooter is the new thing. I don't think any of this is
the trend issue again. Yeah. Literally, we've seen like Battlefield 2042 try to do the extraction thing.
Oh yeah,
2021. I've completely lost it. Yes. Yeah, 2021. Right, and obviously
I forgot about that one.
A big pile of poo. And there are extraction shooters that are doing.
There's some people who still played it. I actually hopped on it last night. I played some Battlefield, and I hopped into the distraction mode and stuff. There's still some people playing it, but it's very, very hard to get a lobby. I mean, you have to wait like 10 to 20 minutes for a lobby.
Well within that space, but like I don't know, I feel the priorities are so out of whack here. I'm just am I so out of touch? I'm having this like Principal Skinner moment all the time where I'm trying to get like my ideal kind of like platonic multiplayer experience.
Well, the thing is, I look, because the thing, like, I keep going back to Concord, but it's because there's so much money invested in it, and it's such a big deal, it's such a big talking point. The fact that was rejected so outright, and it's so tired, and it feels tired to experience it in regards to the menus, the presentation, and then saying they're going to do this story that'll roll out one cutscene at a time for the next couple of years, or whatever it is. That being so roundly rejected it only vindicated no, we are all quite tired of this, and it's very easy to see a trend being chased. Now in Concord's case, like I said, that game's been in development for so long that if it came out 4 or 5 years ago, maybe that would have hit better.
I mean, I don't know, like, if the audience are like tired of it. Like a lot of these like companies, they just copy and paste what people are that they already done, and they don't innovate on it at all. But like with Concord, they brought up Concord. I mean, I heard some people enjoyed it. I didn't play it. I don't know. To me, it didn't really look that fun to me. But I don't like to give my judgment on a game if I haven't played it. So I mean, I don't know if Concord's gonna be free. I think it's gonna be free. If it's free, I give it a try or whatever. I mean, I like to play all kinds of games, but maybe Bungie can, bring something to the table that people will really enjoy and stuff. I mean, coming out with like a game similar to another game, it's not a bad idea at all. Look at Marvel Rivals. That's a very similar to Overwatch. Besides it being like, with the Marvel IP and third person, it's very similar to it. And people really enjoyed that. People really, really liked that game, what they played. I never played it. I mean, I watched a lot of gameplay on it, but I never played it, you know? Or were people asking for a extraction shooter from Bungie? No. No. A lot of us, especially the hardcore players, would have rather them just keep working on Destiny or come out with a Destiny 3. But my whole thing with FAD is like, I love Destiny. I played since Destiny 1 beta over like, I probably have like over 20,000 hours between both games and both platforms and everything. It's kind of still. So I mean, I don't mind them branching off and trying something new. There's gonna be a lot of players who haven't played extraction shooters before, but played, Bungie's games. Destiny, Halo, the old Marathon, stuff like that, and they're gonna be willing to give this a try. So I can see like the player base when it finally releases being pretty decent. But yeah.
But still, the idea of, what do people want from Bungie? Like, they're not going to do another Halo. Like, most of that team, most of those key members have now left, especially during the most recent round of layoffs. A lot of the key individuals that brought Halo to life, that brought Destiny to life, have now left Bungie. So you've got the remnants of that team. Some of them are being looked over by Herman Holst and Sony now. Some people left to go to Sony, but they're left with the idea of Marathon. The idea of a Marathon itself is named after the original Marathon in the 90s. Trying to do this one idea that is like the new Holy Grail, the new Halo, the new Destiny.
It looks so cool.
Maybe that'll be the case, but I still don't think that you can really do something this big on a multiplayer game. I think it would need to actually be if you're going to do another Halo, it needs to have Halo level lore and a main character and a drive, and it needs to have that much purpose to it.
It's why The Last of Us is so big, is it has an actual like lore and
like. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if I want a Destiny 3. If it's going to be basically, Destiny 2 with better graphics and slightly more like, mechanics or whatever. Like, they had another project, and you're gonna, it's gonna be like third person, and you're gonna play characters from the Destiny universe. See, that sounds very, very interesting to me. It sounds so different. I think that's what me and probably a lot of other people want, like something different, something new. You know, we've been playing Destiny for 10 years. 10 years, the same game. And honestly, much hasn't changed at all.
Mythos behind it. Obviously, you have stuff like Overwatch, which like had its own really intricate lore that made it, even more successful. But I agree with you. I think you need to have that kind of heterogeneous approach to the idea of like constructing a franchise. And for me, it's something that feels so trend oriented, like an extraction shooter. Which again, like we hyped up the Hunt Showdown before. It's a really good game. It has its strong core niche within that multiplayer shooter space. For me, it doesn't feel as organic as something like we're going to make a cool new franchise, and that's my frustration with it. Like even Destiny, that was at the forefront of the looter shooter craze. That was like in and around Borderlands, but it was its own. You can't deny that the lore around that thing was completely original and had a unique aesthetic that had going for it. Marathon could have something similar, but couple that with the exhaustion over stuff like Concord and live services. I don't know. Like I agree with you. I would like if you're gonna do a new Halo, like you need to look at the reasons why Halo.
And that's just more of a wider.
But you can't really compare Concord and Marathon because they're two totally different games and genres. Like we haven't really got that many extraction shooters, and ones that have actually stuck around. Like how many can we name off? Let me know in the comments, cause I know Tarkov is really huge. I'm trying to think. H1Z1. Well, if I'm gonna oh yeah, Hunt Showdown. If I'm gonna talk about ones that actually like stick around, it's only like Tarkov and Hunt Showdown. And Hunt Showdown is kind of like extraction shooter light, kind of. Like a lot of people really they don't compare Hunt Showdown to like Tarkov, because Tarkov is like way more hardcore in a sense, Hunt Showdown is basically like levels. You basically, you go in, you try to get a bounty done, and you try to extract, and you just do that for experience to level up your character and buy more perks and stuff. It's kind of it's different than Tarkov. There's probably more extraction shooters, but like, see, I can't even really name any off the top of my dome, and that are really relevant besides like those two. So this is a market unlike Concord, which is just another hero shooter. I mean, which we don't really have that many of, but because Overwatch is so popular, but we're getting more, and I don't know Concord's going to survive with Overwatch and Marvel Rivals coming out. Like I can already see Marvel Rivals taking some of Overwatch's player base. Like, but is Concord better than those two games? I don't know about that.
Conversation on what could they possibly do as Bungie to be able to get back in people's good graces overall, considering how many misses they've had across the last few years. Even though the Final Shape DLC is apparently phenomenal, it is pretty phenomenal based on reviews and everything. But yeah, even when they showed off Marathon, the art style's fine. Like it didn't make me go, I can't wait to play as that character or anything like that. I also, before I pass it over, like in regards to Extraction.
I don't know if Bungie had that many misses. I played all the DLCs and everything over the last few years. I mean, the only one that was really bad and got, negative reviews was Lightfall, because Lightfall was terrible. Besides getting the strand, you can tell like that story was supposed to be part of the final shape, but they, took that part and cut it, which I was like, but like, like Shadowkeep wasn't terrible. Hold on, I feel so bad because but yeah, like last few years, like, which queen was good? Which queen? The final shape. Uh, I wouldn't. Beyond light. I mean, that's like a. It was good. Uh, like if you want to talk about like Destiny content, like in a whole, like, okay, Curse of Osiris was trash. Stuck around for that. Warmind was okay. Hi, how's it going? Um, but really, from onward was pretty okay. Forsaken, great DLC. Shadowkeep was okay. I wouldn't say it was bad. I wouldn't say like Shadowkeep. I mean, Forsaken and Beyond. A lot of the DLC wasn't bad besides one, and I would say that would be Lightfall. Lightfall was the worst DLC since like after not Shadowkeep, but Forsaken.
Shooters or extraction mission stuff. Like, I play everything.
Hi.
I barely associate that with that term with anything. Like the extraction shooter. Like, maybe that's a mode in a game. Like, I'm not seeking out extraction shooters. Like, I don't know if I'm just in them. I don't know if you are or whatever.
They are
like,
kind of like they have a lot of popularity. Like there's like you said,
Yeah.
Escape from Tarkov's kind of at like that front niche. Like these things all do really really well on YouTube and clearly have an audience. And
Yeah.
it's why you see stuff like Call of Duty. And I know Warzone has its own extraction game mode. I think that's a bigger focus in Black Ops 6 maybe.
Well, I'm not sure about Black Ops 6, but it got canned for Modern Warfare 3 onwards.
Right.
It was like the Battlefield
So
situation.
we're already at
Yeah.
the point now where they've looked at the trend and gone, we can't hit this space. I think
because it's a mode, it's not.
Is
It's not a genre.
this a similar issue, Josh, where it's like, you know how esports highly influence the development of
I think he's wrong about that. It is a genre. Extraction shooters are a genre. Now, can anybody make an extraction shooter? No, that's like saying any of these developers can make a looter shooter. Well, we found out plenty of times that they can. Not anyone can do it. It's not just a mode. It is a genre. Like they're just talking about like Tarkov. They have an audience. They have people who really like playing that game. Now, is it better to watch? Maybe. I don't really watch extraction shooters like that, but I have been watching more of that Delta Force gameplay, the extraction shooter. Now that looks like something I can get into.
live service games like Rainbow Six and Overwatch, and it came to a point where they're catering so heavily to the esports crowd that it kind of alienates that broader mainstream appeal. Are we getting to the point now that there's some game modes are just fun to watch on YouTube and people less want to experience them repeatedly themselves? The intensity. I don't know. It's really interesting, but I don't know.
No, it is interesting. I think we have, it's probably a wider discussion perhaps, but we have seen, I think, streamers and certain YouTubers who play these games 8 hours a day, literally their job to play like Battle Royale games or extraction games, having such influence on those games because they are so loud, they are the dedicated player base, but that's maybe to the detriment of the wider player base who isn't at that level, who doesn't play them in that dedicated way and doesn't know them inside out. I do think there's definitely something to that. I think I've got two things that I want to say about this. One is a little bit of a bit, but it's also got some truth behind it. And that's, does Bungie know how to make games? I'm not really sure. Yeah, they eventually can make a
Are you sure it's not several developers?
What kind of comment is that? Does Bungie know how to make games? You know, what kind of oh, what kind of comment is that? Like Halo series, you know, 1, 2, 3, Halo Reach. You know, like the beginning of Destiny wasn't too good of Destiny 1, but they got there. They got there. Destiny 2 pretty much the same way. But they got there, it got way better. Now, do they know how to start a franchise? I mean, 2 out of 3 would say no. They don't know how to start a franchise. I mean, Halo 1 started off good, and they ended that off good. Destiny 1 and 2 started off terribly, but they ended good. That's why I say they know how to make games. Now, it's debatable if they know how to really kind of start a franchise or a game. And they have old games too, like Marathon. I mean, I never played Marathon, but you know, seems like the people back in the day who played it like it. So
The Bungie.
Like, that's not to slag off the quality work they have done, but if you, like you mentioned earlier, Scott, if you look into the development of any of their titles, especially when they're doing something new, like Halo was a miracle, but that went through a bunch of iterations, right? Destiny wasn't received well, and if you look into the development of that game, a complete shambles. They managed to turn it around with Destiny 2, but then it's a roller coaster ride, and now we're back in the same position we were 10 years ago with Marathon, where it seems to be on fire, and it could either be amazing and it could all come together, or it might fall to bits like Destiny 1 did. Who knows? But there is so much just...
what is he talking about? Destiny 1 did not fall to bits. Destiny 1 ended so great. So great. It started off terrible. Thank you. Thank you for the follow. Thank you, I appreciate it. But Destiny 1 started off terrible. But, you know, a lot of people stuck around. I stuck around for Destiny 1. Sure. But, you know, and Destiny 1 ended very good. Then we got Destiny 2. Started off pretty terrible. Now look at Destiny 2. It's in a pretty good place. So I don't know what these gentlemen are talking about, but are they Bungie fans, or have they really like played Bungie? Because I've played every single Halo game made by Bungie, and I've been playing Destiny 1 and Destiny 2. I just haven't played like their older games, like the original Marathon or anything like that.
Nightmarish stuff that seems to go on behind the scenes creatively with the construction of their games that I just don't know how they keep doing it, and I wonder how many times they can mess up without people going, maybe you aren't as good as we thought it was. But back to your perhaps more pressing point on extraction shooters, I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea to try and get that one big console extraction shooter, because I do think there's a gap in the market in that regard. I just think it's going to be very hard, because we have seen other franchises give up on the idea. Call of Duty's DMZ mode and the extraction mode in Battlefield, for instance, and we've
literally got them out of the games entirely.
They still play the Battlefield one, I think, but it was like a week of interest, and then the live service went back to focusing on conquest gameplay.
And now the COD one's gone.
It's gone now. It's still, I think it's still playable if you have Modern Warfare 2, so it was supported for that year. I don't think...
I would say for the Battlefield extraction shooter, they probably should have just made it its own like thing, like its own game, instead of putting it into Battlefield 2042 as like a mode. I feel like it probably would have done a little bit better because it doesn't play bad at all. But I feel like, a lot of the audience for Battlefield, they're not going there for extraction shooter. They're going there for Battlefield, conquest and stuff. That big team battle, modes and stuff. I feel like, if they would have like made it its own game, it probably would have done a little bit better, or probably would have just done the same.
I think it ever exited beta though.
See, that's fascinating.
And then they dropped it, but at a certain point, I do think Call of Duty and Battlefield just had to choose. Like, I would disagree with what you said that it's not a genre. I do think it's a genre, but that's why it's been killed in these franchises.
Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the DMZ mode in Call of Duty. A lot of people actually liked it at first, but they didn't work on it. Everybody wanted like a out of game what's the word I'm looking for? Economy in the game. It wasn't really much to it, It was a very dumb, very, very, very dumbed down version of extraction shooter. Fonzie, you may be asking, Fonzie, how do you know this? I mean, cause I've watched a lot of gameplay on Tarkov, on Hunt Showdown, and any extraction shooter that comes out. The new one, like I said, those were first. Been watching a lot of content on it. COD, the DMZ mode had a lot of potential, but it was like really nothing. Like basically, when you extract the stuff, you don't really keep it. It just turns into experience to a lot of the stuff. Like there's not a lot of economy outside the game and stuff, and people were asking for that. I feel like if they would have listened to the fans and gave them what they wanted, DMZ would have been way bigger than what it ended up to be.
This is because you cannot, I just don't think, as big as Call of Duty is, you can't support zombies, the single player campaign, a multiplayer suite, Warzone, and an extraction thing on top of it. You're already spread too thin with the other pillars, right? And I think if you are going to do
What campaign? Huh? What campaign? You talking about Call of Duty campaigns in the last few years? But
an extraction mode and do it properly, it needs to be more than a mode. It needs to be way more robust than what DMZ was. So with that,
yeah, okay, he's right about that.
Hands deck on just making an extraction shooter and getting the most out of that premise. It might work, but at the same time, you have to reconcile that with the fact that the extraction shooters we talk about now that are successful, they're getting on. Hunt is getting on. I know it's getting a next-gen version literally this week, but even Tarkov, it's getting on, and that might mean there's space for someone to come in and reinvent it for a more mainstream audience, or it might mean that we're just about to move on to something else, kind of how it feels in the Battle Royale space. I don't think you'll see another big Battle Royale game now. I think we've got our established pillars down. I think you've got PUBG, I think you've got Fortnite, I think you've got Call of Duty, and you probably will get other titles, but nothing
Apex
as those games, right? Whereas I do think there is space for an extraction shooter, but by the time it comes out, we might have moved on to something else or moved back to something like the hero shooter boom, and maybe we're more focused on that.
I wonder if
There's 4 pillars of the Battle Royale: Fortnite, PUBG, Warzone, and Apex Legends. Those 4. Nothing's gonna topple those 4.
Well, yeah, I'm saying the whole thing about mode versus genre because I've not been convinced yet that like that it can be a self-sustaining genre. You do get games that have different feels, and obviously something like a Hunt Showdown or whatever.
What are you
And I think
talking
it's
about?
time-
What the
the
fuck's he
reason
talking
you could
about?
argue the reason that it didn't work around Battlefield and Call of Duty is that those game feels, those engines, that feel of gameplay, the pace to gameplay is built for a different mode entirely. Whereas if you build something, that is a bit weightier.
This is kind of painful watching him talk. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it hasn't been established. Like, it's like not more than like a mode. Like, look, I mean, it's not really many. It's not that many games in the genre, but for what games there are, like, they got player base, you know? It's just other games have not done it well at all. Like, Call of Duty hasn't done theirs very well. Battlefield didn't do theirs very well. And part of that is because they try to make it, and they try to look at it like it's what he's saying, like just the mode, and that's the problem. You have to look at it like it's the fucking genre, like it's the full fucking game.
And is more about sight lines and is whatever, like, there's a whole different way to do a more military style shooter or something that plays into the way
No,
the
it works
extraction shooter is
fine.
built. However, ironically, unless Marathon doesn't play at all like Halo or Destiny, it's not going to fit again. And so I wonder about like that distinction. Like, will it feel like a mode again? It won't feel like a genre.
Yeah, and for Battlefield in that instance, we know that the hardcore audience for Battlefield want to play Conquest, they want to play Rush, they want to play the stuff that brought them into the, that is a franchise built on high stakes destruction and mass multiplayer warfare. If you try and distill that down into a small kind of Twitch shootery kind of extraction game mode, it just never made any sense to that game.
That's the thing. It's like, did extraction shooters die, or are they dying, or are they being ignored by sheer comparison to the things they're being bundled up next to? Or is always the interest?
It's always a matter of convenience, and this is the reason why I think Warzone. And you might, because you've sunk so many hours into Warzone, Josh, you might disagree with me on this. And the reason why Fortnite has done so well, I think it's a matter of convenience. I think people see the brand new shiny thing, like when PUBG was a thing. Not everyone has a PC. Fortnite comes into the console space and says we can provide you that experience in a sort of immediately kind of retrofitted, kind of smashed together way. And that became a huge success and has kind of gone on from there. And same with Warzone. Like, we used to come to Call of Duty for, fast-paced 6v6 multiplayer team deathmatch stuff. Maybe Search and Destroy has the slower paced gameplay, whatever. And then Warzone was there as that we're going to do our own battle royale thing, but it never felt as if it was like this is the thing. And then people played it because it's battle royale and I can get it in my Call of Duty game. I think there is an issue here of convenience. And if you're a new IP like Marathon, if you're a new IP in general, maybe that makes it a less enticing prospect for people because it's gone from being in an adjacent space to them to I need to invest my time and attention in something dedicated to that mode.
I'll throw in, sorry, before I pass to you, alongside that idea of like, because you think that you've got Sony's entire weight of marketing behind Marathon, assumedly, when it finally starts to come out. But it's interesting seeing something like Concord try and put a foot in the Sony first party identity, trying to have a story-based element to it, but also primarily being a live service multiplayer shooter. And can that work? Like, to me, it's exciting having the idea of a weekly story. I'm going to come back and see what's happening with these characters. Someone dies, whatever, they're not on the roster for a few months. Like, that's potentially really cool. I know that's not what Concord is. Now that it's revealed itself, it's just cutscenes every week, like for 5 minutes. But there's an idea of how to do that. And then does Marathon, if it's alongside the Sony marketing and the Sony first party stuff, does it need to have narrative weight? Does it have to have something even close to what Halo used to?
So I can see this is kind of clickbait because they're just really talking about marathon. It's not really about like Bungie as a whole. They're talking about Bungie and Marathon. Like, I thought they're going to be talking about like, everything that's happened, like all the people who've been fired, all the other projects Bungie had in development and stuff. Let's speak on that. Look, I feel like maybe the reason Marathon got delayed and everything is because I mean, kind of. They didn't know what they're doing. Like they were doing too much. Have you ever heard this thing? Like your eyes are bigger than your stomach. I feel like that's Bungie. You know, during like the pandemic and everything, all these developers went on a hiring spree and hired hundreds of people. You know, especially Bungie, and then they decided to start developing like 3 to 4 other games. It was like Marathon, this other game called codename Bears, and another one, then another one after that. Like they were just doing too much. Then when they realized um they don't have the money to support all these, other projects and everything, that's when everything went to shit. Cause you know, they were relying on one revenue, and that was Destiny 2. And you know, Destiny 2 has its ups and downs. That could not support 3 to 4 other projects. No way. Then you have like hundreds of new employees. They're out of their mind. Now, if they just had Destiny and they had Marathon, hired those new employees, Marathon probably would have been out by now. Guarantee it, Marathon would have been out by now. But their eyes got bigger than their stomach, and they bit off more than they can chew, and now they have corporate overlord, Sony, making sure because they just spent what $1.3 billion on them, so they have them up their ass now. That's the reason they took some of the projects from Bungie and gave it to other developers. I mean, they really, Bungie doesn't really need that many games. I understand they want to branch out and be a developer. They want to be a developer with, multiple games and everything. But that's going to take time. You had Destiny already, so you should have took, some of the funding from that, gave it to Marathon, and just worked on Marathon. You would have had your 2 games right there. Bam. Didn't want, Marathon gets up and running, and the revenue looks good for that. Maybe start another project, but really keep those 2 games.
To have, or can it just be this extraction shooter that's part of your PS Plus subscription? Like it is attached to Sony for better or worse now.
Yeah, it's a huge question, right? I think I love Call of Duty Warzone, and I think it's better than Call of Duty's previous attempt at a battle royale mode, which was Blackout.
I like Blackout.
4. However, even though I think
like
it's a better
Blackout
mode, I would be ignorant and naive to assume that it became a global success just because it was slightly higher quality, when the main factor is, I think what you said there, you, and convenience, and the fact that it was free to play. I think.
Okay, Blackout wasn't that bad at all, and there's a lot of people who played it. The only reason people stopped playing it because Warzone came out. If Warzone never came out and they just would have added on to like Blackout and stuff, it would still probably be alive today. But of course, nobody's playing it now because Warzone's out. It's got better graphics, better movement and everything. But yeah.
You can easily pinpoint the demise of Blackout and the Battle Royale mode for Battlefield 5 because you had to buy into an ecosystem and a game that already exists to play what was perceived as being an extra mode. Whereas I think a genius spin on marketing for Warzone was saying this is a standalone release. It is in conversation with the main game, but you don't have to have the main game to play it. We are going for a broader audience. If you've never played Call of Duty before, but you like Battle Royale, you can jump in here, you can get your progression going, and then if you want to, you can buy the main games as they come out, so you can help with progression.
Give you team deathmatch as well. They give you another mode.
They have like limited time modes.
I swear there was, in my forever chasing just a couple of games of team deathmatch, I swear that was at one point attached to just a Warzone download. But that's also the insanity of the way Activision have done all of the
that's
stuff.
true. To my knowledge, it was like a large team deathmatch mode with Warzone 1, but even then, you have
probably limited time
a lot of
mode.
game modes within Warzone. You've got the Battle Royale, and then you've got the subcategories of solos, duos, trios, quads, and you've got
Plunder.
like, Rebirth Resurgence. You've got all of like these little wrinkles, plunder, a lot of different types of modes there. And I think that kind of convenience of, well, it's Call of Duty, you get the production quality of a Call of Duty gameplay loop, and it's free for the first time ever, and it's this new genre. And I do think I think it probably started off as something additive, but you could actually see, especially when Warzone was at its peak across that first couple year period, you could see the development priorities completely shift. And when Warzone was almost envisioned as a way to get people into the main games were then envisioned as a way to get people into Warzone through that kind of cross progression. And I think with Concord and people talking about its 35-pound barrier to entry being too high, Marathon, you have to assume, right, if it's not free to play, because it's Bungie, it's probably going to be a little bit higher than that. I think it restricts people from going, yeah, I'll give that a shot. I'll give it a try. Let's see what that's all about. If it's not an established thing that already has, a comparison point or something similar that has already worked, and it's a difficult sell, I think.
I think overall, all those wider conversations going on about what the in-shooter type thing is, and like you said, the evolution of Battle Royale, and then the way the extraction shooter was kind of floated as like, this is the next thing everyone's going to do. But I didn't know that thing about the way that it's been handled on the Call of Duty side.
Yeah.
And if they can't make it work, I think that's kind of damning.
That's the thing again, though. You can tell when the big studios want to make something work. Even when DMZ was announced, I think everyone thought, this is not going to last. It never got out of beta. You could tell from the updates that they just didn't have the resources or the want to commit to it. They could have sacked off other elements of the game and put all their focus in it. And I do think that's kind of where we're at now, because even with Battle Royale, you had PUBG, right? But you had so many imitators that got nowhere near it for those first few years until Fortnite came around. You had good games like, H1Z1 or something that had strong player bases.
Yeah, it's okay.
I think if
I played a lot of it.
about Battle Royale shooters then that we're having about extraction shooters, now we'd probably say the same thing of, we're not kind of convinced yet. I do think it takes someone to come along and kind of convince us and prove that it's more than just kind of these niche, smaller scale productions, and come in and say, no, we're making this the next big thing. And maybe Bungie can do that.
Which is maybe what you were saying about, like, you might need something that's actually a way smaller budget. They're like a Lethal Company sized budget that then blows the F up and makes the bigger teams go like, oh, actually we should do one of them.
I mean, that was all right.
Let's talk about the
I had to. I mean, a lot of the stuff like this guy was. I couldn't really agree with him a lot. I could see where he was coming from, but I mean, he was kind of like the guy in the middle. He's like neutral, but like saying like abstraction shooter is more like a mode instead of a genre. That I don't think that's true at all. It's a genre, like how like the tac shooter, the hero shooter, those are genres like into themselves. Now, like, it just depends on like these big developers, like how much do they really want to put time into it. Did EA and DICE really want to put a lot of money into their extraction shooter? No, they didn't. Because if they did, it would have been its own game, not a tacked on mode onto Battlefield that they weren't going to do anything with. Same with DMZ. Like, DMZ could have been pretty cool, but they didn't really want to show it no love. like the players who were playing it, the content creators who were playing it, were giving them suggestions, which the game probably could have lasted longer. You know, they either you're gonna go all in, these developers are gonna go all in and make it a big deal. Hopefully that's what Bungie's doing. You know, I mean, it's not like a mode they tacked on to like Destiny or something. Like it's its own game and everything. So hoping like they trying to put everything they have into this, you know. But yeah, if you want, I like what culture gaming. I'll give him a like. Give him a like. Um, you know, show them some love. Bigger, it's a bigger channel than me, 1.7 million. But you know, I always try to show everybody love. Show them some love. Give them a like. But let's read some of the comments. As a former D2 player and customer, nothing about that experience makes me want to play Marathon. I can see that. They removed the entire beginning of the game, but expect new players to start playing. Okay, a lot of people are talking about Destiny, and that's one. Oh, three. See, I can't believe Sony paid over 3 billion for Bungie. Oh yeah, 3 billion. I forgot. It was 3 billion. I forgot about that. It was 3 billion, not 1.3. It was 3 billion. I mean, Bungie has really messed up. Like taking half the game away in Destiny. Terrible idea. You know. It seems like they really know how to make their players unhappy. Then they know how to make us very happy. It's weird. Like they think of like the worst thing to do and they do it, then they, I don't know, like they just gave all our weapons back. If you had your old weapons from before the sunsetting, you got them now. You can play with those weapons, any content. bungie Bungie has fallen so far from grace. They have a little bit, yeah. It's just stupid decisions. They just been making the worst decisions ever. It's sad to see. And a lot of the old people who were at Bungie, they're not there anymore. They either quit or got fired, which is kind of sad. But yeah, it was an okay video. I just really didn't agree with that one guy. That's about it. Show them some love. And I'll see you next time. Peace.